Hi there, I'm Haleigh.
And I'm Jonny.
And you're listening to Jonny, Haleigh, Day of
Fun. Who do we have on today?
I don't know. Let's dive in and find out. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Jonny, Haleigh, Day of Fun podcast. Today, we are joined by Olcan McSparron and from Northern Ireland, super exciting, with Coins and Serpent Productions. Hello, and thanks for joining us.
No, thanks, Jonny. Thanks, Haleigh, for having me on the podcast. It's great to be here.
Absolutely.
Super excited. So let's get started with, I found it a little bit interesting that your background is in law, but you are a filmmaker. So how do those two things go together for you? How'd you come to be putting together law and filmmaking?
Yeah, so pretty much I did movie making in secondary school, high school, as it would be in the United States. Where we had an A level, which was called Moving Image Arts. And I'd always fancied making B movies whenever I was in school. And then from Moving Image, we had an opportunity for this to be actually graded. So I came to the conclusion, okay, so there's an A level, which is going to let me make movies. I would quite like to do that. And so I came up with ideas to which my teacher told me you would need a multi-million-dollar budget to make as movies. I chose to disagree and go ahead anyway. Good
for you. Don't listen to the ones who say you need all the money first to figure it out.
Well, to be honest, he was a fantastic man. He really did help and encourage with all the films. But I do remember I made one, which was an animation, which was it was supposed to be a kind of Ray Harryhausen-esque animation of prehistoric life coming to life. And this was a bit of a nightmare for us to get done on time. And in the end, we had the armatures without the fully fledged creatures, but the finished film was still very fun. I did another, which was King Arthur kind of retold. So we had a little aspect of the story of Merlin going to meet the Lady of the Lake and get Excalibur. And so we did that, and that was told in a minute and a half. And me and my family went to Achill Island on holiday, and pretty much over 2 days just filmed in all the mountains and kind of scenic bits of Achill, little shots of me and my dad dressed as wizards, essentially doing this.
That's so much fun. Oh my gosh, I love that your dad is like totally getting in on it too.
The Lady of the Lake was actually my mum holding up a toy Lord of the Rings sword, which we got, and then on a red background. So this sword looked absolutely brilliant. In actuality, it was about $5 from eBay, I think we got it from, and it was just made of plastic, but in the silhouette, you could not tell.
That's brilliant, though. That's the thing I love about indie filmmaking is that you have to get creative because you are on a low budget, right? You have to get creative with how you're actually shooting it and still creating a quality, like something that you feel good about, right? Even though you're using something that was $5 up at eBay.
Yeah, then after that, we made a few more. There was one which was Blue Screen, which, despite I watch it back and I really enjoy it, is a truly woeful film, but it was really fun to make at the time. And then we kind of did spaceships, we did lava, we did
I love it.
Every special effect I could kind of think of under the sun. And then I went to university and I was kind of debating would I study film or not. And I think it was under the advice of my parents. They kind of said, do something else first, which kind of would build you academically and kind of build your mind. So I did a history and politics degree. And after having to redo my A levels, after I not got the grades I wanted to get the university I wanted to go to. And it was in my second year, I was doing a radio play with some friends of A Christmas Carol. And I mentioned to a very good friend of mine that one night after debating society in a pub in town that I wanted to do a film, but I was not very good at doing audio recording with films and I had real difficulty, but was good with a camera. And so they messaged into a group called Media Therapy Group. It's a Facebook group, which a lot of people in Ireland who are creatives would be on. That this man called
cool.
is making a film and he needs someone to do sound. And I got messaged by a girl called Chantal, who's just amazing with sound. She was doing this as a degree and said she would like to work with me on the film. Now, the film I was making lacked certain things to make a film at that stage, notably a script. So I had a rough idea of what I was going to do. And so I agreed to meet Chantal for a coffee and said, look, Chantal, the truth is I'm finishing up a radio play. Maybe in February time, I'll be ready to get ready for this film. And pretty much from there, I started writing the script. So kind of over Christmas, and then in January, I kind of worked on the script before university really started up again. And then I had a 20-page script finished. And then my dad came up with another idea for the film and said, and then I was like, okay, so it'll be 25 minutes. And he said, Olcan, maybe make it a little bit longer. And then I was like, okay, wrote another scene. It came to 30 minutes. Then my mum, who's brilliant at coming up with ideas, said, here, I've got a couple of ideas. And suddenly it was about an hour long, this little film that was supposed to be 15
That's so great,
minutes
though.
long, with an hour long script. And what do you call it? What then happened was it was supposed to be an adaptation of Julius Caesar done in the modern day as a cropped gangster. And my mum said, oh, Alcan, there have been too many gangster films done. Do it as a corrupt politician and just move them into the modern day. So this didn't actually involve much changing of the script, but was probably the best suggestion that was made.
Isn't that kind of fun? It's not a lot of change from gangster to modern day politician.
I know the irony of that. And so what we did I wanted to make it very clear whenever I was doing Rubicon that although it was Julius Caesar, so there are passing similarities to a lot of big political events such as Brexit in the UK, the Trump 2016 election, but it is not giving a commentary on any of those events. It is a story of Caesar, but to not acknowledge that there are not similarities and putting them in their modern political context I think it would be insane to not acknowledge the similarities. But when there's like analogy to Caesar and Trump or Boris Johnson, that is actually not intentional. It's just a general critique of politicians really manipulating electorates and trying to not have a limit to ambition, which was what I'm really going for with it. It is a story about Julius Caesar fundamentally. And we did the film. And so it came to casting the film. The script was put on Media Therapy Group. And I said, it's for free, thinking no one would get in touch about acting in this at all. And boy, was I wrong.
That's so great, though. And
that's great.
John and I, we kind of talk about this a little bit too, like just being kind of a DIY situation. We do all the editing, all the posting, all of that. And it would be great to have extra help with that. Like, it's really great that you have places where you can put your stuff out there and say, hey, I'm working on this thing that we're building. We don't necessarily have a budget for it, but come and join us. And I think it really is great that you see there's a lot of creative people out there who want to join in and dive in and help you with a project, even if it's not necessarily for pay, but just for the sake of the art of it.
No, well, that was what was so phenomenal. I mean, we had auditions, and I mean, like some of the people I met on day one of the audition, I would have worked with on subsequent films, and would actually, if I was doing, a charity fundraiser for a local cause or something, would always come around and call along. So you've got that kind of amazing connection where you meet people on a film, and they do become lifelong friends, and they do become people you can drop a message and say, hey, I was wondering, would you be interested in attending this? And you can kind of pick up immediately where you left off. And I think that's really one of the things I love about film so much, is that you do get talking to so many people and just meet people from so many walks of life and with so many stories. I mean, one of the actors, the man we cast as Julius Caesar in the end, Frank Cannon, who currently lives in the United States, he was fantastic to work with. But one of the frequent occurrences on set was inevitably me and Frank would get talking and telling stories to one another, and then Chantal would go whenever we were doing sound, guys, we've got to keep filming, and we'd be like, yes, back to work.
Stay on task. You always got to have somebody who's keeping you on task a little bit, right?
Yeah, we needed to keep up task a lot. And so from Rubicon, that was just the kind of first big film, and it came in at 50 minutes. And we held a premiere just before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was in Queen's University. And that was raising funds. Every ticket we charged £5 for. And the funds we raised went to a local homeless charity. And I think we raised over £550 approximately. I can't quite remember off the top.
That's really great, though.
Mm-hmm. So it was good that something better than the film came from the film, that we were able to do that. And really what I found from it was it was amazing having people involved and being able to just keep making movies. And from there, I've worked and made several other films, and just, I'm working on a feature at the minute, which I'm aiming to complete, hopefully by the end of this month, although more than likely halfway through next month. Then I'm hoping to start filming where I will be in New York for a period of time, filming in New York. It's a film I'm working on at the minute, so that will hopefully be in June, July period.
That's really exciting. So what are you working on right now for what's the project that you're doing? If you can talk, I mean, obviously don't want you to be giving away too much
No,
stuff
no,
if you
no, that's grand. Yeah. So the current film is completely shot. We did our last final pickup last week, which was just some scenes which were mostly completed in the edit, but we needed a couple of shots we'd missed and a couple of bits to piece things together. That is a low budget crime caper about a group of small time criminals who commit theft of one priceless painting and of several £1 million. And they commit a robbery which goes disastrously wrong, and then make it to a safe house where, in a kind of Reservoir Dogs, but more kind of 50s English crime story kind of vibe, they start to pick one another off one by one, and they get
okay.
a various letter hearing who the person who hired them is amongst them. Little do they realize they're all getting played by the actual head of this organization they've got involved with. And gradually it becomes apparent that they are, but it's too late for them, and they are doomed after the disaster of a robbery.
Do you have any elements of like comic relief in any of this, or is this all more from a drama perspective? Like how
I
would you put like the vibe or the flavor of the film?
I would say it's a drama, but it's a drama with moments where you're laughing, but you don't feel like you should be laughing, but you can't help yourself. It's a bit
Oh,
always,
but those are some of my favorites. A little bit of
yeah,
that like morbid,
a bit,
dark humor.
a bit Always Sunny in Philadelphia, when you laugh, but you don't feel good about yourself for
I
laughing.
like that
For
though.
sure.
I love
At those,
Always Sunny. That's
at
so
those
perfect.
Yeah, at those moments, I think that's kind of what we've got with it. Now, I'm hoping it's succeeded in being a comedy, and if not, a quick rebranding of it as a drama will be done before it goes out. But
I love a dark comedy, so I'm excited about. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
that.
I've got the trailer for that on my LinkedIn, I believe, which you can view anytime you want, and if anyone watching the podcast wants
Yeah,
to,
we'll definitely link it in the description too, so people can check it out.
they want to see, that would be fantastic. And the real kind of aim with it is to do a film which does achieve that. And I mean, it was made on a micro budget. I mean, I think we're talking maybe about under $2,000 was spent on it, and that was, paying actors just a wee bit of like thank you money for coming along and helping out,
Mhm.
and food on the day, which really was a series of microwave pizzas and and juice. So it really was just kind of,
I mean, again, though, that's so great. It's one of those things that's why we really love to talk to people like you, because there's so
Yeah, for
much
sure.
great work being done, unique projects, something different. And I think and John and I, again, we've talked about this too, that,
Mhm.
it seems like people are hungry for more than just what Hollywood thinks is worth putting
Yeah.
into a big budget. Right?
Ye-
We're all getting tired of the reboots. We're all getting tired of seeing the same characters and the same storylines. We want something unique and something different. And
uh,
so like it's so great that people like you are out there getting together and I mean under $2,000 budget, but you're still making a film. And it's so great that there are so many people willing to jump in and be a part of it. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, John.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I think Netflix and all these kind of,
Streaming services.
streaming services kind of make it pretty possible for ideas that really wouldn't shine in Hollywood or whatever, in these big budget or whatever. There's a lot of indie films that are really doing well. You know what I mean? So it's like, I guess, how do you find your own route in that? You know what I mean? Like, how do you decide what kind of movie you're gonna make, and like how you're gonna capture people, and like what kind of media it's gonna be put out? I guess
yeah,
that's my question.
yeah. I mean, like, when it comes to me personally,
Mhm.
I'm not a filmmaker that is particularly picky about what films I watch. I'm as comfortable watching something that's incredibly artsy and it's incredibly like, you're kind of going, you're noticing the camera angles and you're noticing the acting. I can watch those films and completely enjoy them. And in equal measure, I can sit down and I can watch a mainstream Hollywood movie and enjoy it. And I kind of think some filmmakers really struggle to like actually separate all their knowledge from watching a movie. I've always been quite glad that I've never had a problem if I can sit down and watch a
Yeah.
movie or like watch the same TV show I've seen 100 times before and just kind of like take away like anything I know about tracking shots or anything I know about blocking in the situation, just go, that's really enjoyable and just view it as a viewer. And I feel glad I can do that. When it comes to the kind of current state of Hollywood and making a career in it, one of the things I found, and I think it's kind of mantra, the older I get in life, the more I realize I'm only 26, so I'm probably talking like I'm an old man here, but
It's all right. We're in an age when age really doesn't matter because we all have access to so much of the same things to be able to connect to each other, right?
no, 100%. I mean, that's one of the things from making films I've found out is that, you can be on a film set and your best friend's 55 and you're 26 and like,
Yeah.
And it
just
doesn't matter. You can still find things to talk about, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing about the internet and having access to streaming services and things like that is that like you can talk about a lot of the same movies even though you might be of different generations, right? Because we have access to all the music, movies, pop culture, things that you might talk about with someone who's of a different age than you. It's so you have the ability to have conversations and communicate in ways that, before the internet and before things like this, you might not have.
Well, no, that's 100% what I would say, what I would say. And I think that it kind of, the thing is, whenever you've got such a wide platform like we do nowadays, it means it's very easy to get, your work lost. And I think that, that's why you do want to try and go down a still kind of traditional industry route where you get talking to people who have access to, a bigger audience, have access to getting you shown. But when it comes to getting your work to that place, there's, if you've ever seen the movie The Finder, and it's the very end, Ray Kroc gives a speech, and he goes, how did I make a fast food empire? And he says, despite Ray Kroc and The Finder telling a story of him, which paints a very mixed picture of me, they'll say the words persistence, just endless persistence and continuing to go after your dream is one of the things that really does make success. And I think Stephen King had written 5 novels and had thousands of rejection letters from short story companies and had thousands of like novel rejection before Carrie came out, and then it was obviously a massive success. So I think this idea of overnight success is a bit of a myth. It actually takes a long, long time, and you've maybe got to be prepared for the fact. I'm very prepared for the fact that I'll have this film Peter completed, I'll have Rubicon completed, several shorts, and it doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to get even a small budget after. I might need to make a few more low budget films. And I think making low budget features is really how I'm trying to distinguish myself from a very competitive field. But I think, as well as just that, it is that kind of mantra. If you keep making films and, you actually start to get them out there in the more festivals and also start talking and talking to people like you, but also talking to producers, talking to people, talking to executive producers, talking to film financiers. You might be going into a meeting and to be 100% honest, you might not know 100% of what you're 100% of the industry because you just couldn't know it without being in it. But if you go as a young professional into something and say, look, I'm passionate, I'm ready to work, I've shown dedication to this. And, I'm very fortunate because I have done a history and politics degree and a law degree that I can show that I can be professional outside of just a movie making capacity, that you can go and get that funding and get that thing made. And I think, I would hate to be a filmmaker with all the best ideas on the planet and not get anything made, and would rather get 60% of the stuff I would love to get made, and stuff not made, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it does. And that, it's kind of part of, I'm definitely in that same boat with you too. I mean, just with all the things we're doing with podcasting and, I'm a writer too. I write short fiction and I have a lot of like movie ideas that I've got like kind of outlines for. It's that thing of just keeping on creating and keep on, putting your stuff out there and keep making things, and you'll find the right people and you'll meet the right people to be part of your projects. It's like, just follow your bliss and follow your passion, and you will end up in the right circles, in the right places, right? It's just about keeping on because it's who you are to create.
Yeah, no, that's 100% what I would say. When it comes to creative endeavors, and I think that there's a lot of it. There's a lot of the time a kind of stereotype of the creative, which is this kind of figure, which is lawn coat, to kind of lawn coat, pen in hand, and sort of writing something out, and that's an aesthetic look. The actual reality of
Yeah.
creative.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like you come in from having done a 12-hour shift in work, and you've got to, you've got to eat something, then you've got to go to the gym, then you've got to go back, and then you've got to just sit down. And even if you're exhausted, write 4 or 5
Mm.
something and get them on the paper, and you might read them the next day and they're rubbish, but it's that kind of getting there and actually writing it, or sitting down with your movie and going, look, I can't get everything edited, but I can maybe get 30 seconds to a minute. Looks
Mhm.
Yeah.
and get that ready and done.
Uh,
That kind of just attitude. And I mean, partly why I like doing no budget features is that people can do shorts, and I think shorts are absolutely brilliant. I think some of the greatest films that you'll ever see are shorts. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, in the modern era where you can pick up a camera, which, in which in old Hollywood, that would have been like thinking what they would have thought was some piece of science fiction technology, and you can buy a microphone, just need to go and get people down, write a script and shoot it, and then you can make a feature film. It's the, this idea you can't do that anymore is just a myth, and people say you need budget, and
yeah.
you need budget, but like if you put your mind to it and you're really dedicated to do it, I think that everyone can find that time and can get that film made. And even though it might take you, you might make a goal, I'll have this released on February 20th, and it might be it doesn't get done till March 20th, just with real life getting in the way. The fact that you've sat down and made it, and maybe can't be in a schedule, doesn't matter. I would rather it was done than it was not, than it was just something that was always talked about.
John and I talk
Yeah.
about that too. There's such a thing as good enough,
Mhm.
like there's such a thing as just put it out there and be done with it and move on to the next project. Like you can't overthink things and be a perfectionist about it.
Yeah.
You can't wait until you have like exactly the right person for this role or whatever it is, right? Like there is such a thing as just do it and get it done and have a project and put it out there. It's not that you don't want it to be good quality, obviously you do, but
Mhm.
you can't measure yourself by, standards of like Hollywood, for example, right? Like you can't put yourself up against everybody else. Like you have to just consider your own work and your own passion about it and just, let it be what it is and be
Yeah.
proud that you got it out there.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I say when something goes wrong in the film. A lot of people go, "Oh my god, something's went wrong," and I try not to get into that mindset and try to get into a mindset of, "Well, that's an opportunity for us to do the film differently than how we were supposed to." One day in Rubicon, we had this room booked in the Titanic Hotel in Belfast, which gave us a room at an amazing discount because I uh, begged and pleaded and said I was a student filmmaker on the phone, and
However, you got to get extra help, man. Do it. I'm about it.
You're up.
they took a bit of a shine to the production. So we got this office, which was just lovely, and we had 2 cameras there. So this was one of the days we had 2 cameras, which was really good. We were doing 2 scenes. One scene was the end scene of the film, and one scene was near the beginning of the film, where the office was occupied initially by Pompey Magnus, who was a rival of Julius Caesar, and at the
Mhm.
end, the same office is occupied by Mark Antony and his new cabinet. And Mark Antony kind of knows that he's ascended to power after Caesar's been assassinated. And so we had this room, and we had one of our actors who was supposed to have a very big part of this scene, and he was unable to attend due to a last minute mix up. And so one of the main characters could not make this scene. I remember going, right, whenever that's happened.
How you gonna fix this? All right.
So we had one of the other actors who was really just a bit part in that scene, but had bigger parts later in the film. And I said, Tony, who I've actually worked on in every single film I've done ever since,
Oh, very nice.
Tony, would you be able to do the lines that are for this other character? And Tony said yes, but he didn't know the lines for the other character and only knew when his mark was. To which I said, right, that's the script. This is a binder. This looks like you've got government documents here.
Mhm.
Going to read these and you're going to keep making notes, like you're making notes on what Pompey's saying, and then just reply the line you've read a minute before. And this worked remarkably well. And then this allowed us to actually have Tony's character, Decimus, have a lot more context to them. And then I realized one of the big flaws was that Decimus, the character we named him, I just picked a random Roman senator who had been involved in Caesar's assassination. Why would he be in Mark Antony's cabinet after having killed Caesar, Mark Antony's closest ally? And I really panicked because his name had been said multiple times in the film, and did a bit more reading and found out that the actual Roman senator had saw what way the wind was blowing after having killed Caesar and jumped ship to Mark Antony's camp. So,
Which is, again, another sort of like, that's absolutely, you would see that happen today. That's not outside of the realm of political theater that we see in our, yeah.
No, it's really not outside the realm of political theater that we see today, but that was just a happy accident. And then the other actor who's played Cassius actually got a new scene done that just his character separately, and this worked complete charm and really just brought the film completely together in a way that it wouldn't otherwise have done. And it was just a series of complete flukes that you couldn't have planned any of that to happen.
I love that, though. That's one of my favorite things, when the universe just lines things up in an unexpected way. You think something's gone wrong, but it's actually the thing that's gone very right for you.
Yeah.
It's
brilliant. No, it's brilliant. I agree with you.
Yeah. I was going to ask, who is your biggest influence as far as like the way you film something? Like, do you have a director or just a filmmaker that you draw a lot of influence from as far as like the way you film, or like the way you bring like suspense to anything? You know what I mean? The way you draw emotion.
Yeah. So I kind of have like multiple directors, which is one of them, which is why I'm going to try and make this answer not ridiculously long, but
we all have it. No, go for it. We all have multiple sources that we draw from. So yeah, who are your favorites?
No, fair. I mean, like, I know it's like probably one of the most common filmmaking answers, but like, I would have to say Steven Spielberg's work. And when it comes to watching a Spielberg film, his level of craftsmanship with how he moves a camera, how he blocks a scene, how he does lighting, how he manages to do that and keep an audience completely engaged with the film, and somehow do all of this incredible artwork without making it overly noticeable he's doing this incredible artwork. I just find that ability to completely immerse your audience like that, whilst simultaneously pulling off some of the most complicated camera techniques and complicated block and complicated storytelling. Just, I find that amazing. He is like an absolute unparalleled master at it. And I'm kind of one of those people, anytime I've met a celebrity, I've tried to, not like go for the kind of celebrity, like, oh my God, that's such and such celebrity. It would be the exception if I'm not like, oh my God, you are like
that would be the fanboy moment, right?
Probably would be my fanboy moment. Yeah. I would say, as well as that, Stanley Kubrick is just a massive influence on me personally. I particularly love Stanley Kubrick's stills work that he does, and particularly the set of photos from the 1950s in a collection, which I've had a bit of a brain freeze here, but it's absolutely amazing. Just photography around New York that he does, black and white. I particularly like how he does a lot of his work, which is like a stills photograph, which has come to life. I really love the way he does that, and I
think it's Kubrick who, you talk about being just making as much work as you can, kind of, and how you even if 60% of it is what you get out, it's better than nothing. Kubrick, I'm pretty sure it's him that I'm thinking of, that when he died, his house was like full of like scripts he had written that were never made into movies, and just like mass amounts of all this creative work that like never went public, that like he was just continuously creating and just mass amounts of unpublicized work that he had just in his house.
Yeah, no, I would say, I think that is true. I think one of the things about Kubrick, they say, is he was a perfectionist, and he would do scenes, sometimes hundreds of takes on a scene.
Yeah.
I never had that luxury, and for the good of my cast and crew, it's probably for the best.
Right? They're probably glad that you can't just keep him there forever and be a slave driver.
that I don't have that luxury. Yeah, but I think that kind of aspect of Kubrick, and I think, just sometimes whenever you look at his films, they're just like it's like looking at a painting, and they're just absolutely beautiful. I kind of really like early Kubrick films. A lot of people really focus on like The Shining, Clockwork Orange,
Yeah. Space
and
Odyssey.
Space Odyssey, and his later work, and I absolutely love those films. But actually, my favorite Kubrick film is probably Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Poem. And I think
Okay.
what I Kubrick is probably it's a movie which has an amazing message behind of, like, America and Russia are going to have to, start to work together to stop the entire world getting blown up and try
Mhm.
alone. And as well as that, although takes this incredibly serious situation of nuclear war and global destruction and turns it into a comedy. And to me, that is just an unbelievable skill that's able to take this. And, the general getting told about this situation whilst he's there having an affair and then is in the bathroom and he's like, wait, what? Like that. Just like, if you knew that was actually happening in real life, you would go, oh my God. And you would kind of laugh and not
And
good.
you would when it is real life, right? Like, that's kind of how things happen in this human ride. It's ridiculous and outrageous, and you have to laugh because otherwise what would you do? You
Yeah.
have to break the stress somehow of the ridiculous situation you find yourself in.
I personally love Spartacus as well, and I know it's probably the most Hollywood
Okay.
film, but I actually love it because I kind of look at it as Kubrick is, having his creativity limited here, and I sometimes think when a creative has their creativity limited, that's sometimes whenever they're their most creative, and I think with
Mhm.
Spartacus, him and Kirk Douglas, despite there having been issues whenever they were on set with what ideas they wanted to do, you can actually see where a really good project comes together there, which I would say is really a very flawless movie. And I think that, not whilst not being a typical Kubrick production, a much more mainstream Hollywood at the time, I think it's probably the absolute pinnacle of mainstream Hollywood at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The production value, the shots, and then if you're going more traditional Kubrick, House of Glory from that time, which I think is just, it's just a fantastic war story, which kind of highlights just, I think, it's very hard to make a war film without, doing a glamorization sequence or something like that. It makes a war film which actually does do an action sequence, but is in no way glamorized, and actually does a story where a group of innocent men are going to get killed, and for no sane reason
Mhm.
whatsoever, because there's no way they could have taken that mountain. And I think that that's just a fascinating. I just think it's a fascinating examination of the humanity and power people interact, and shows one man's personal struggle in that situation. And I just think that that is really, I think it's a very deep film, and a bit of a forgotten about film actually, that maybe we should look at again, because it really does show that how one person's agency can be very limited, or one person's agency can be exceptionally powerful. And I think that's just fascinating.
It's, I mean, again, the parallels between films and actual human existence, it's, looking at war in general, right? If you
Mhm.
can break it down and you can bring it into this, like, very intimate scene, and you can get that really profound message of this is it's really emotional when you're in that little tiny pocket of what's going on, but it is still true that, well, what is the sense of any of this that we're doing? None of these people deserve to die that are going to war, and
Mhm.
for what? For certain personalities of other humans who, some of them are in power, some of them have the ability to say, "You go to war and you do this," and how many people are just, I don't know if you wanna say a pawn necessarily, but people who are just trying to exist in this world, and you get caught up in a situation and you're just, it's kind of the idea even of, I if you wanna go to, like, World War II and Nazis, commanders who are just doing what they're told
Yeah.
because it's what they're told to do, right? Just looking at the humanity of the situation of that when it from a really close up view, right? That all these senseless things that we do, like war and killing each other, and where is the reason in it? And if you can, like, get people to understand that from a very close up view of it, it
Mhm.
helps you to be able to extrapolate that out to the larger picture.
No, I
Yeah.
think I think I think that's what Kubrick has done very well there. An incredibly broad topic such as the First World War and decisions being made, and yet somehow made that story personal. And
Mhm.
in the Nazi war theme, which, is just a remarkably difficult story to tell. And to tell that in a book form would be difficult. To tell that in a film form in an hour and 40 minutes is nearly impossible, but he achieves it with Paths of Glory very well. I would probably say the kind of last filmmaker I would really kind of touch on would be a filmmaker called Roger Corman, who's kind of seen as the king of low budget features. And I think what I love about Roger Corman is probably that mantra that he had of he was just going to make as many films as possible and make the films that he wanted to see. And I just admire the films that he directed and produced so much. And I think that idea that he was like in Hollywood and he just started going, something, I'm just going to go and make it myself, and just went and made it himself in the 50s, 60s through the about the 90s. I think he still produces quite a few. And if he ever watches this podcast and wants to work with a young filmmaker, he wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind. I'm happy
Yeah,
to
hey.
direct Roger and but what you call it, and that kind of ability just to go out and make films and produce films. I mean, I watched one a wee while back with a very young Sylvester Stallone, which he produced, Death Race 2000, which is just the most bonkers idea of a race across America. People and kind of like in a kind of Hunger Games-esque style, competitive
Okay.
in one
Yep.
cover. It's truly bizarre. I really recommend it. It's just so nuts. And I mean, like, no studio would have made this film because they would have said, no one's going to watch this. But you watch it and it's the single most enjoyable film. And I mean, he produced it. And I mean, the fact that he just read this bonkers idea and went, something? Yeah, we're going to go with it and go with that. And there's this film at the end is just amazing to me. So I'd say Roger Corman, and I mean, there's other big influences, George Lucas, Ray Harryhausen, Tim Burton, James Cameron.
Love Tim Burton.
If you're going further back in time, Cecil B. DeMille's kind of biblical epics.
Yep.
They're very old school kind of biblical epics, and they're very like old Hollywood. They're still just, you're watching these like enormous, like the kind of scenes put on screen, and you're kind of going like, whoa, and this isn't like, this trick of the camera. This is just like 5,000 people planted in the desert in costume.
Yeah, massive amounts of extras, and like sometimes that is really fun to watch with those old films.
Yeah.
The amount of production that went into recreating some of the, we think right now the CGI stuff we see is so amazing and so incredible. And it's like, no, that's kind of pretty easy to pop in 5,000 people if you're doing it with a computer rather than actually trying to organize 5,000 people who are extras.
So, I mean, like me and my mom watched the 10 Commandments, the 1950s one, recently with Charlton Heston, and it's just phenomenal. And then we decided, something, we'll put on the 1923 10 Commandments to see what it's like. And I mean, started reading on the news that then the actual, I think it's like a sort of like Egyptian pharaoh's like statue, which was about 100 foot high, that was constructed. Cecil B. DeMille had buried in the desert in Arizona, so it would become almost like a piece of archaeology, and it was recently unearthed by archaeologists. And I just find that fascinating that these films have actually become part of history, and that they had the foresight to go, look, let's actually just leave the remains there. There was also the very practical economic reason I then read to stop another studio going, hey, they left that there and going and filming it. But I just find that amazing that those films were made. Akira Kurosawa's work is absolutely phenomenal as well. And I think an often overlooked filmmaker is David Lean, who is would be one of these filmmakers, which I think a lot of filmmaking people would talk about, but the general public are somewhat forgotten. But I mean, he is just the most incredible royster of films. I mean, Lawrence of Arabia is the big iconic David Lean film, and I think anyone who's serious about film has to watch Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
That point in their filmmaking career. But I would say, like, you've got Ryan's Daughter, Passage to India. You've got his version of Oliver Twist, which is really underrated. I always maintain it's probably the definitive version. People don't give it the credit which it's due. You've also just got Bridge on the River Kwai, and you've got Dr. Zhivago too, and it's just this amazing ability, a bit like Kubrick. Then like, there's not one frame of those films which you would not be happy to put as a painting on your wall or put as a picture on your wall.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I love some of that, the aesthetic of old school film that was actually shot on film, right? Like as much as digital can do a lot of things these days, the aesthetic of something that is shot on film stock has a different look to it. And I love that
Yeah.
you said Bridge on the River Kwai, because I love to bring up to Johnny all the time that
You got embarrassed?
I went to school for film, and I would like in my day job, I made a reference to Bridge on the River Kwai that was kind of a little bit of a joke, and it came to like dead ears. Nobody knew what I was talking about, and I was like, "Oh, whoops!" I guess pretentious film school Haleigh just came out and made a reference that nobody knows.
Like,
Whoops.
one of the things, like, I would argue that's not pretentious film school, Haleigh. However, I would say that that's kind of like, I would say that that's, like your thing, you're in. I remember there was one time I was working in the post office doing just doing a Christmas casual job of sorting mail to school and needed money, to be blunt.
Listen, I had a
We all
post
do.
office job. Yeah, right. We've all been there.
I think everyone just ends out doing that Christmas job in the post office at some point in their life,
Mhm.
getting that very
I think now it's turned into like the Christmas job at Amazon is probably what it is
Yeah.
now.
yeah, the Amazon. Actually, that's true. I forgot the Amazon warehouse, but
Mhm.
what do you call it? We were there and we were playing this game where you would say a movie's name, and you would then the last letter of the movie you said would have to be the first letter of the next movie you came up with. Uh,
Okay.
you were banned from naming like Iron Man, Spider Man, or anything like that, because it just meant a lot of movies that began with N, which we
Mhm.
were probably low on by the time the game was done after 8 hours. But
Yeah.
I ended up naming Yojimbo, which is a Akira Kurosawa samurai movie from the 1950s, which no one knew. But this actually led to a big joke in the post office of this movie, and people would try to find a way to reference it.
Oh, I love it.
And it was just the most bizarre thing. What do you call it? And one lad actually went and managed to totally definitely not off of some site and then copy of it to watch and said he thoroughly enjoyed it actually. Even if the
See,
subtitle
there you go. You introduced
yeah.
somebody to something they didn't know.
Uh-huh. But yeah, and I think that's one of the things about film though, it's fairly universal. Everyone can, everyone can sit down and watch it. And I mean, like, very few mediums where, you can go to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then a week later go and have like a very intimate, like, character study of someone. I think that that's, a very unique thing to film, is that it really is somewhat limitless that way. And I would say that, in a way that, like, you'll find someone who's like highly dyslexic isn't able to, read very much, but they can watch movies. And likewise,
Mhm.
so many, it's so accessible to so many people. I would say it's probably one of the least snobby art forms that exists, in that anyone can sit down and watch any movie. And, I would say that's something that really is very good. It's like, it's kind of classless as an art form, as anyone can get involved with it.
Mhm.
Anyone can make that film, and
And there's so many different aspects that can come into it, right? It's visual, it's the audio, whether it's the music soundtrack that you have, creating music.
Mhm.
There's so many different aspects of creativity that you can incorporate into filmmaking, like animation, right? For example, you can get that sort of visual art going in there
Mhm.
with film. I do like the way that you look at it, that it's limitless because of the amount of access. You can create so much with it, whether it's with the actors or, again, the sound, the environment you create, and
Mhm.
anyone can sort of immerse themselves in this new universe that you've created.
Yeah, that would kind of be the most apt way to sum that up. Is that it kind of is just a little universe which anyone
Yeah.
can go and visit. And the handy thing with, like, especially with streaming and even and with physical media, is that you can just revisit it anytime you want. And I mean, like, I think, that sometimes we talk about this kind of idea of the comfort show that people like to
Hmm.
watch. I think that's really, like, people like to go back to, the apartment with Fraser and Niles having an argument,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah, they like that. Fraser would probably be on my list of comfort shows.
I was gonna ask, what are your comfort shows and comfort movies? What do you
Oh,
watch over and over again?
well, that's a good one. So Fraser would be one of those shows, definitely. I've probably seen all 11 seasons about 2 or 3 times. I although I'm a massive Star Wars fan, I'm probably a bigger Trekkie when it comes
Okay.
to it. So, and my inner geekdom is going to be published all over the internet here, but
That,
It's
that's
all
all right.
good.
Sci-fi writer right here. No shame. No shame.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I absolutely love the original series, which is what got me into Trek. But I really love Next Gen, Deep Space Nine,
Mhm.
Voyager, Enterprise. Was less fussed on Discovery, the new one. Not because of the politics actually of it. I'm not one of those fans. I just didn't like a lot of plot decisions they made, and I thought skipping the year 3000 was dumb. And I'll happily argue that with anyone who's that Trekkie because I'm skipping 900 years into the
Yep.
future.
Please,
Um,
everyone, get into the comments and start a Star Trek argument. I want to read it.
but loves Picard season 1, 2, and 3. Absolutely loves Strange New Worlds. I really think that as a show, and even Discovery, despite not always liking plot decisions it made, I do like the cast. I do like a lot of the one-off standalone episodes they do. I think I think that would kind of be one of my comfort shows. Fraser would be on the list. This is one that is kind of old. It's kind of an old UK show, which I don't know if you would have seen in America, but Blackadder. Blackadder, and it's
Oh, I've
Is
seen
that
the ad for it. I've never seen it though.
Blackadder
no?
is
Is that guy who's the actor in that? The guy who
Rowan,
played Mr. Bean, right?
Yeah, Mr. Bean, Rowan Captain.
Rowan Atkinson. Now,
Yeah. No, I have seen some of that. Yeah, I do know. I haven't seen all of it, but yeah, I'm familiar with what it is.
probably what he's most famous for is Mr. Bean, but I would
Mhm.
argue the best role is probably Blackadder. And
Yeah.
Blackadder is about the story of the Blackadder family, starting from the 15th century, and then it's like it skips a few hundred years each time, and you encounter a new Blackadder. So we get Blackadder second, where he's in the court of Elizabeth II, Blackadder third, where he's in the Georgian court, and with George, I believe, and Blackadder goes forth where he is in the trenches of World War One, and it's pretty much how he is an incredibly intelligent, witty man within society, but he's stuck having to deal with complete idiots all the time, and them making decisions.
Don't we all kind of have that feeling sometimes, right? Like, why am I the most competent person in the room? This is not fun for me.
Right.
There is the occasional moment where I do meet someone and I kind of go, I'm sure they have many admirable characteristics, but they do a very good job of keeping them hidden. And I do,
Yeah.
I do
But I
find myself,
don't know what they are.
yeah, thinking that from time to time. But Blackadder would definitely be a comfort show. And I mean, like, trying to think, there's probably several others which are probably dropping out of my head right now.
Mm.
But yeah.
I remember a big UK movie when I was a kid was Green Street Hooligans. Do you remember that one?
This
It
is what-
had Elijah Wood
Elijah Wood was in it. I was gonna say, yeah.
and
It was a football movie. It was
yeah, it was about West Ham Hammers. It was about the football firms where
I
they would
know.
just fight after the or whatever. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I have a funny feeling I saw this on late night TV about 6, 7 years ago, and I'm trying to remember it now because it sounds. Was it Danny Boyle? Out of curiosity, was the director, or was it?
Oh,
I
I'm not
think
sure
that
who the director
no, that
was. I
sounds
guess.
correct.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up to be sure, but that does sound correct.
I'm trying to think. Actually, Danny Boyle, another fantastic filmmaker. I think what I love with
Yep.
Danny Boyle is that I think he's got a very good way of kind of capturing. He kind of does the nitty gritty side of life very well with his work. With things, and I think he's very good at capturing normal people, kind of going about their day, and stuff like that. I think he's a
Mhm.
phenomenal filmmaker. I wouldn't say I would put on any of stuff's a comfort movie if I'm being
Well, yeah.
on it. Trainspotting isn't really my comfort movie to go with. But,
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
No.
Very. So, what else are you currently working on that you might want the audience to kind of be on the lookout for? So we know that you've got your project that is that's done filming that you're going to be putting out. What's upcoming?
yeah, so I'm gonna be sending out to members of the Belfast Filmmaking Club that want to work with me on this project a script for what I'll be doing in New York, which is called An Irish American Horror Story, which has. I'm wondering how much I can really say here because I don't want to really spoil. I'll be filming in June in New York. I know that for a
Okay.
fact,
Okay.
and I'm kind of getting stuff sorted with that now. There's going to be a little bit of filming in Philadelphia and in Georgia as well for that, but mostly New York. And then we're going to be doing a second unit shoot, which will be filming in Ireland. I don't know how on a no budget film I've effectively got a second budget, a second unit, but there you go. Because
I was
substantial.
gonna say that's a lot of travel in the U.S. for you. I mean, New York and Philly are pretty like you can do the train thing and get back and forth, but popping down to Georgia, that's a.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be visiting family in Philly, which is gonna be kind of.
I was just in Philadelphia this past week for work. It's funny that that's where you're going. Lovely city. I had a good time.
I know it's an absolutely lovely city. I was kind of joking to my family. I'm worried I'm going to damage the Liberty Bell even more or something.
Go out there. No, do it, please. I would love to see that news story and be like, hey, I'm on my podcast. Look at
local man, local man causes international incident. I can see it now.
Yeah, right.
What do you call it? No, but I'm really looking forward to Philly. I do boxing as well as a kind of like. I'm not aiming to go for the heavyweight champion or anything. I've been doing it recently just as a kind of thing. I had friends got me involved with it, and I told my boxing club that I'm going to run up the Rocky Steps.
Because you have to.
In the jersey from the
Yeah.
booth, and do the kind of iconic.
Sure.
Absolutely. You got to do it.
And you know they can post that on their social media. So yeah, but Philly, I've got family there, so I'm going to be doing some filming there too. And that's kind of just scenes I've written into the movie. But ultimately, ultimately the film is going to be very successful. It's going to be a very successful horror film. It's going to have bits of it set in Ireland, which will become clear with the plot. But essentially, it's kind of like a demonic figure from the 19th century has returned in the present day and has ended up in the United States due to reasons which become clear as the film goes on. So the script is being sent provisionally next Thursday. So this Thursday coming to crew in Belfast that we're going to be filming with, and we'll be doing a large chunk of the movie in Ireland. So it's provisionally been sent to them then. Although it is possible that could extend into early next the following week, just depending on how this final leg of progress with the script goes, just to make sure that it's something decent to read and there isn't like a glaring plot hole that's been omitted. And from there, this will be kind of one that I'm doing, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I do have some plans after that. We're having conversations with some people more established in the industry than myself, but really want to kind of just keep those close to my chest for now, until I kind of know where I stand with them. But if it works out, I'll happily jump on to another session of the podcast and talk through.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, we would. Yeah, no, absolutely. That we would love to have you back to talk about all of it, and how fabulously well they've all been doing at indie film festivals, and that you're up for an Oscar.
I mean, that would be lovely. That would be lovely. I'm not going to lie.
We'll put it out into the universe for you, and you can come back on the podcast and be our big celebrity guest that would come on. That was great.
For sure.
Look, if I do get invited to the Oscars, I'll try to score you tickets for the Oscars after party, which I've heard is wild.
I'd be down.
What do you call it? I've heard it's wild. I don't know. I've never attended it myself, but they want me to go. I'm very game. I don't know who the Oscars committee are this year, but I'll happily attend if you want. So
yeah, bring us all in. We'll have a party time. It'll be great.
For sure.
We'll bring in some of the new blood that is much needed in Hollywood, some of the new, more interesting things that are happening, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, with current Hollywood, one of the things I do think, I mean, I'm very glad, Oppenheimer and Barbie, which, despite those films having, to be honest, very little in common with each other, and a meme trend somehow made them both make even more money than they were expecting to make, which I find fascinating, but that's a human psychology story, which is way beyond my knowledge of basic psychology, but
right.
They are encouraging films. But I think a lot of people are going, cinema is back. And I am a little worried that, when it comes down, Oppenheimer was a film made by an already very established filmmaker at the top of his career about probably one of the most important figures of the 20th century. So this idea, it was a kind of cinema is back movie, I do call into question. And Barbie likewise. Was, Barbie, I would challenge you to name anyone in the world who's never heard of Barbie. I just don't think that person exists. And was a very established actress in the lead role, a very established director as well. So this wasn't like the kind of Good Will Hunting story with Matt Damon, where lucky to get something new. It's very different, or it's not really even the kind of Spielberg Jaws story. So I think that they're very encouraging, but I'm erring on the side of caution that we're suddenly like in this place where Hollywood is suddenly kind of embracing new talent in the way it did with the movie brats of the 70s. With your kind of Lucas's, your Francis Ford Coppola, Scorsese, where it kind of, these guys got low budget films, gradually higher budgets. I'm not sure we're back in that position yet, but I do think that that we are moving away from every film has to be part of a massive cinematic universe. There's never sequels. Merchandising is 100% central to the film. I mean, I enjoy a bit of merchandise. Not definitely bought Star Wars toys when I was a kid, but
Right. It's not like it's not
Yeah.
fun, and it's not like we don't love, the commercialism aspects aren't. It's like we all buy the stuff, right? We do,
it's like,
but you still want something. Again, Barbie's been around forever and ever, right? It
yeah.
We still want to see something new, something fresh, something.
Well, I think an example of that is, have you seen the series Primal?
Primal, I have not.
I was telling Haleigh about it.
Yeah.
I think it was on HBO. It's on one of the streaming services, but you can tell it was probably just an independent idea, and then they kind of just sold it to a streaming service. But it's basically like a caveman and like a dinosaur. Basically, it's animated, but it's a mature animated series, and there's no dialogue. It's all just emotion, and like how the music makes the scene kind of feel.
Atmosphere, like, yeah.
Yep. And but it's all just and it's a mature, there's
It's
a lot
not a
of
kid's
fighting.
animation.
Yeah.
It's obviously an adult.
It's
animation.
basically a story about his daughter kidnapped and him trying to find her. But there's no dialogue. There's no nothing that tells you what he's saying or what he's trying to admit. It's just emotion and seeing like music and kind of like light changes and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
That fascinates me, and I like that because without dialogue, you kind of have to be zoned in on the screen and watching the animation, right? And
Yeah,
because I as a viewer of TV and movies and stuff, like I do, like I'll put something on and maybe be listening to it and doing other things, right? But that's kind of an interesting, because in animation, if you're listening and not watching, that's a lot of work somebody put into animating that you're missing.
It's more of an idea that on paper, it sounds like it's going to go nowhere. And it was one of the most interesting series I've seen. It was just really cool, different.
I don't know what either of you know of Hammer Horror at all.
Yeah. The old Hammer Horror stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Hammer Horror.
B-horror movies. Yeah.
70s, but they made a movie in the mid 60s with Ray Harryhausen as the animator, and Raquel Welch was the star of the film, and it's called 1 Million Years BC. And a very similar concept of a caveman who is essentially ostracized from his tribe and has to travel out into the wilderness where, he's attacked by dinosaurs and ape people and various different things, to which he arrives at the shore of the sea, and then he's adopted by another tribe, and then he's also made leave them, and she's fallen in love with him, and they kind of go into the wild together, and then the dinosaurs are wiped out by a volcano, and why man is living alongside them is a complete mystery to me. I'm paleontologist around the world, but what do you call it? I don't think
it's creating another universe, right? They got to have that suspension of disbelief when you're watching a movie sometimes.
I think so, yeah, but it sounds very akin to that movie, which I really recommend you check out if you get a chance. But I've actually just looked up Primal on my IMDb, and I mean, like, anything with dinosaurs in it. I mean, I've always said this here: you can't make movies unless you love dinosaurs. It's just a weird look. Do maintain exists. And I mean, like, even with special effects technology, you look at it each time, it's always a dinosaur movie where that next big advancement comes along. You've kind of got you've got Gertie the dinosaur, the one done in 1925, a very simple animation. You have you've got the obviously Lost World with Willis O'Brien, then he tops it again with King Kong. You have the Ray Harryhausen dinosaur movies, then you have Phil go motion with Prehistoric Beast for the first time. Then he does it in Dinosaurs 84 documentary. Then Jurassic Park comes along. So
Yep.
every time special effects technology gets advanced, just seems to me like those old lizards seem to somehow do it. So I can't personally wait for the fully robotic ones that we're going to have in 30 years' time, whenever the next big dinosaur.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that idea. I am so into like the AI and robotics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like fascinated by all of it. Like, oh my God, make a dinosaur movie with a whole bunch of robot dinosaurs. I will absolutely watch it.
That's the dream long term, would be to do that film. But yeah, that might be slightly out of my budget for now.
Yeah.
Give
Well,
me
you know what?
a
Just
few years on this
it-
one.
right. We'll work on it. We'll get it rolling.
Yeah.
We'll get some
Well-
AI people onto the podcast and get talking to them and be like, hey, you should like, team up with our buddy Olcan and make a movie. It'll be great.
I've got this horrible image after the Liberty Bell disaster. We just see another headline. Look, releases AI killer dinosaurs on time.
Just terrorizing Philadelphia with all kinds of like the Boston dynamics. Dinos have come over.
I've got this horrible image. I'm going to get to Philadelphia, and they're like, "No, I'm not empty."
Right.
Sorry, we saw you on a podcast, and we already know you're going to try to trash our Liberty Bell and destroy the city with a bunch of animatronic dinosaurs.
Right.
So your passport has been revoked. You're no longer allowed in America.
Dinosaurs in the background, you holding a cheesesteak, just kicking the Liberty Bell.
I know. I'll probably I'll be playing the Irish card as much as I can if that happens. So yeah.
Just doing it on St. Patty's Day. No one.
I was gonna say, if you just do it on St. Patty's Day and say that it was just a drunken adventure, then everybody will be fine with it.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. What do you call it? No. Well. Fingers crossed. I'll not be in America till June, sadly. So I don't know if I'll be dress up and like make it look like I thought it was St. Patrick's Day, but
you could.
That might be the plan. So yeah, I will be in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day, which is
just make a fake prop Liberty Bell that you can like smash with a sledgehammer. And there you go. That'll be your promo.
Just put it as a fold in with
Philadelphia.
Put it as a fold up in your passport. They open it up. Whoa, what's this?
There it is.
But this image of walking for U.S. immigration.
All right.
Oh, no. Going, it's they're just like bewildered faces. That's never happened.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We do want to be respectful of your time, so do tell the audience where they can find you if they want to look for Coins and Serpent Productions and all of your films. And we'll definitely link it below. But tell everyone where to come and find you and follow what you're working on.
Yes, so it's Coins and Serpent Productions. You can find it on YouTube, our channel, where we've currently got one feature film, one short, one trailer for a feature film, which should be released soon, available to see. You can look me up on LinkedIn, just Olcan McSparron, which Haleigh and Jonny have informed me that they will be sharing links for it as well. If there's anyone wants to get in touch with me as well, I can an email address. I can pass on an email address to them, because I'm always game to work with creatives from all over the world and hear your ideas and try to get something made, and fingers crossed can continue making films. And I look forward to chatting to Haleigh and Jonny again.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely. We will definitely have you back. I can't wait to hear about your trip to America and what kind of trouble you... So we're going to have to do, when you're done filming this film you're working on, you're going to have to come in and do it like a check-in with us and let us know how it all went, because I want to hear about all the trouble you get into.
Whereabouts in America are you guys based? Out of curiosity.
We're in the Dakotas. I'm in South Dakota. He's in North Dakota. So we're in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I was going to say if there was a kind of meeting point, I probably could just do it in person with the two of you, but I don't know if that would be practical in America.
You know what? Who knows?
We're a ways away from Philly.
I was gonna say, we're kind of
I live in Fargo.
Yeah, I could kind of jump in the car and be down to Dublin about an hour and a half if I'm driving. I don't think I could quite do that across the Midwest. But
no, it's a few days kind of drive situation.
Bit of a scale beyond beyond Ireland. But look, guys, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to see more of your work, and again, just love that you are DIY, doing it on the low budget and creating, and, don't let the budget situation stop you from making things, right?
No, 100%. That's what I would say to everyone is just like, we're very blessed that we do live in the modern era where you can just make a film for nothing. And I think that's just like something that should be encouraged. And like, as I said, I think I said earlier, that sometimes we have the creativity limited or what you can do limited. That in a weird way means you come up with the best workarounds around that. And I think that's something that we really, that's something that I'm really trying to do with films at the minute.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's very true, right? Like I'm not sure what the saying is that I'm trying to come up with in my mind, but it is something like, I don't know, it's like limitation is the mother of creativity or something like that. There's something along those lines, right? Like when you're put backed into a corner, you got to come up with some really clever stuff to get out of it. And I think that's, kudos to you that you are there and doing it.
For sure.
Well, thank you. But guys, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
It's been great. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will definitely bring you back again to check in on what else you're working on. Thanks so much.
No worries. Look, all the best, guys, and hope you have all the best, guys, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Brother. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, thanks so much for listening, y'all. I've been Haleigh.
And I've been Jonny.
And this has been Jonny, Haleigh, Day of
Fun.
Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/JonnyHaleighDOF, and we're JonnyHaleighDOF on Instagram and at gmail.com. Send us your hate mail. We'll read it out loud on the podcast, won't we, Jonny?
For sure.
Awesome. Thanks for listening. Peace out, y'all.
Later.